From Tirana to London, from grassroots reforms to advising governments, today's guest isn't just working within the system, she's redesigning it. Welcome back to the UKAP Voices, the podcast where we explore the journeys of standout Albanian professionals from the UK community, people making real impact in business, law, science, public service, and beyond. Today, we're joined by Dr. Lorna Qesteri, one of the most thoughtful minds in international development and social policy for women and girls. She holds a PhD from UCL, has worked across different countries from the UN in Tirana to her current role as Chief Partnership Officer at the Nike-founded foundation in London. Lorna, thank you again for being with us today. Thank you for showing what values-driven leadership looks like and for opening doors not just for yourself but for others too. Let's dive into your journey, how it started, what you've learned, and what lies ahead. I'd like to start from the beginning. What moments from your early life in Albania sparked your interest in the world of policy and global development?
Thank you so much. So I'm so excited to be here today and have this conversation with you and share a bit of my professional and life story with your audience. This podcast is such a great idea. I feel like we need to hear, from other stories to understand more, what our community, what Albanian diaspora is doing. So for me, I'm part of a transitional generation in Albania, I would say. We were, a generation that grew up during the country's difficult for me, it was of my first 10 years of life in communist times. And that was a time that resources were very few that we had in hand. So it was highlighted by scarcity. But at the same time, people had creativity. They had hope that something better was happening. And then my second 10 years of life, so my teenage years, were during the transition, during the Kosovo War. So again, that affects the way you think about yourself and also the future. I would say for myself, 3 have been crucial moments that have led me towards a career in international development or also local development, I would say. So the first one comes from my upbringing, so my home. As most of Albanian families, generosity or sharing is a key component of our culture. So I grew up with a mother that whatever she had was to be shared. So especially in communist times where we had to go through ratios, so families didn't have enough food on the table, but people were still sharing to make sure that everyone had something. So for me, this idea of giving back to your community was instilled from an early age. The second one, I would say through the schooling. So those difficult years of childhood that, as I was mentioning, if there was one thing that was good, was education. So for us, books were the only frontier to the world beyond us. And education was so important for us. I remember participating in a UN debate. I was a 7th grader where we were talking about the UN Declaration of Human Rights or the UN framework, and that opened my eyes in the sense that I saw that there were other countries that were facing similar situations. There were efforts that were being done collaborative among all countries. So that was very fascinating for me. And the third one, I would say, was service or volunteering from an early age. When I was 13, I joined a church in Albania, and we were going as young people across Albania and trying to bring edutainment in a way. We didn't know what was it back in the day, but we would work with children, do crafts for them, do clowns, trying to bring a bit of joy, whatever we had as teenagers. And also we work with young people through drama, through music. So those experiences were very important to me. So I would say education, again, your upbringing, which for me was crucial, and then, service that you do. All of these 3 components in my early years were very important to set me for the career that I've undertaken.
And since you mentioned you lived through so many changes in Albania over the last few decades, how did living through these changes shape your views on reform and progress?
Yeah, definitely Albania has gone through so much change over the past 35 years, I would say, and It hasn't been as fast that we were all expecting, so it was still highlighted by political instability as well as economic difficulties. But I think a key lesson that I've learned is that change or reforms take time. They are never linear. So for progress to happen, there has to be a trust in the institutions that are working for the people, and those institutions have to hear from the people on what are those needs and respond to them effectively. But I think, yeah, again, it's so based on the context, it's so based on the needs of a community. So we need to hear well what they are saying in order to make sure that progress happens.
I totally agree with you on that. And was there a turning point for yourself? Let's say a book, a teacher, a moment when you thought, this is what I want to do when I grow up?
Yeah, there's always such a moment. I mean, around you'd say this is like that aha moment. So I think for me, I was about 18 years old. So as most of my generation, we're very keen to study abroad. So we were looking for options. So I started to study abroad in a country that wasn't very, I would say, common for Albanians. So I found this university in Lithuania, LCC International University, and it was a place where we had students from across Eastern and Southern Europe, but also the post-Soviet bloc. So I took a class there. It was called Development Economics. And I saw for the first time, I was like, oh, wow, there are development frameworks that could be applied. So from modernization theory to linear theories, dependency theory. So it actually, you could put development in specific frameworks. So I was very fascinated by that. And within, as part of that course, I also read a book by Amartya Sen called Development as Freedom, that looked at development not only as an increase in GDP or income, but mostly for as part of increased choices that people have in their life. So it went much beyond improved income, but it looked at the well-being of individuals. So I guess for me that was crucial. And of course, as you enter your career or enter the sector, you see that not always these theories are set, right? So you have to look at the context and work around the context as well. But for me, that was a crucial time that I decided this is the sector that I wanted to be in.
Talking about your studies, I also know that you completed your PhD at UCL after working in multiple international roles. Did those global experiences push you towards a doctorate? How did that chapter shape your path?
Yeah, great question. So I think like there are several factors that led me to UCL and PhD there. I think the first one is my upbringing. So I grew up in a family that was highly educated. Actually, my grandmother from my father's side, she was one of the first Albanian women to get a university degree in the 1930s. My father is also a PhD, part of the Academy of Science in Tirana. My uncles as well, mathematicians and physicists. So I was surrounded by this environment where education was key and was so important for you. So I was always wanted to continue all the steps possible towards finalization of studies. So that's a key element. But I think the key push have been my field experiences. So a highlight one was in Ecuador. I finished my master's degree in the United States in development. Then I decided to do a gap year, it's called usually, in Ecuador. So I went to Quito. I volunteered for a center called Centro del Muchacho Trabajador, which was created actually by a Jesuit priest that had gone to Quito and had seen that there were many children working in the streets. They were shining shoes. And there was nothing that the government was doing for them. They were still working in the streets. So he had this idea of doing some kind of a holistic development, so creating educational opportunities for these children, but also for their parents. So to the parents, they offered business skills, they offered, tailoring skills, whatever was possible, and also health services. So there was this idea of holistic development that was very locally based. And I was really fascinated by that. And I was thinking also of my experience with World Vision in Albania, working in local communities. And I could see how much work it was done. And I wanted to pursue further and raise questions like what has been actually the role of local interventions in development. So I found a professor at UCL, John Tomany. He was very keen about this topic, and I started my PhD. It was very exciting years because I was able to interview a lot of local organizations in Albania that have done a great work and pull qualitative studies and case studies from the field to showcase that actually where governments fail or the business sector fail, there has been a sector that has been filling those gaps to the best of the resources that they had. So I'd say those are the key factors that pushed me towards UCL.
Today, you work on real world reform projects focused on women's and girls' health and well being. What's the key to making sure these initiatives stay impactful and well supported?
Yeah, I think like the key from what I've learned over the years is to make sure that every intervention is actually grounded in the realities of the communities it serves. So, especially the voices and the experiences of women and girls themselves. It's easy to have programs that look great in paper, but then actually they don't work in reality. So for the past 8 years, I've been working for Girl Effect. It's an organization that is locally led and is focused on improving the health, education, the livelihoods of women and girls across Africa and Asia. What's interesting about the organization is what I mentioned, the idea of having these young women developed solutions, which could be tech products, which could be content that is developed for radios, for TV. So everything is co-created with them. And that's not the end. Then when you evaluate program, they are part of it. When you create a community-based intervention, they are part of it. So it's so important to hear their voices. And then you go beyond that. Then you move to the communities around them because we know they don't have all the power. There are many structural barriers that affects women participation, which are of course poverty and lack of resources, but there are also a lot of social ones or norms that obstacle them from the opportunities they have. So therefore we work a lot with religious leaders, with parents, with teachers, with healthcare workers. So the interventions are done in collaboration with these all actors and of course the local government in order to make sure that they are effective. Of course, resources are limited, so when you do an intervention, you also have to make sure that you have the right partners and donors invested in those opportunities, but also work with even local corporates or international corporates that are interested in investing in this area. But the key one is never build a program without having the people who will benefit be part of that and making those decisions. So we have to listen what women and girls are saying.
But working in the NGO world brings constant challenges. How do you stay motivated and avoid burnout yourself?
Yeah, NGOs like every other sector, there are moments where you have challenges, as you mentioned. But I think for people who work in NGOs, they have to have a Northern Star, and the Northern Star is usually the communities you serve. So for me, it's always thinking, if we help one person today to get the resources they need to go to a health center, to get educated, to tackle social norms that help a community to change the vision they have about women and girls, that's success. So in a way, also in conversations with my friends who work in finance, they are always saying, oh, but you do something that actually has impact in the community. So that helps staying really positive and doing the work with joy, I feel. That doesn't say that when you have deadlines or where things get difficult, especially in this funding environment right now, which is very difficult, that you have your own challenges. But I think for me, it has been going and doing field work in the past in the communities that we serve, being surrounded by colleagues that believe in the cause. So being a group of people that work together for something that is bigger than ourselves or our daily jobs. And that's, I think, is crucial to succeed in the NGO sector.
As you work between NGOs and large corporate, how do you align the priorities of both sides, but while keeping partnership meaningful?
Yeah, actually, it's a great question. If in the past development was a bit, when we're working in the sector, quite linear, so you'd get the grants and grants being implemented, things have changed quite drastically, I would say, in the past 15 and 20 years. So it's much more collaborative. So you find corporates who are interested in improving livelihoods for women and girls. You find corporates who are interested in improving health, and some others that are interested in improving education. So you meet them in their priorities and you present the communities that have those needs, and together you co-design a program, and as I said, with individuals that will be affected. So you have to work in tandem, between the donors community, the NGOs, as well as communities that are served. So it's all about co-design, it's all about working together. It's not coming up with a set proposal or set of interventions. The work in this sector is so much iterative, so you have to go back and check what worked, what didn't work. So it's always changing to make sure that the best arrives to the communities that we're serving.
In regards to giving back and moving forward, networks like UKAP Foundation aren't just about success stories, they're about opening doors, sharing lessons, and inspiring the next generation. You worked in spaces where Albanians may be underrepresented. When did you first feel the need for a strong professional community?
So I've moved quite a bit of countries. As I mentioned, I was in Lithuania for some years. I studied in the US, and then I moved to Ecuador and lived and worked there. And of course, my experience with the UN in Albania. Then I came to London. I was in my early 30s. It's a time where usually most people would settled, have their networks of friends, have their families created. So I came here, I had no one. I had actually one good friend, but I didn't have a community around me. And starting with a PhD, so as a PhD student, I felt it was a bit lonely in the beginning. So I really had the need for a community around me. So I found UKAP actually, and I went to one of the networking events there. So through those first events, I would say I met my very, very good friends here in London. So we have a community, a group of friends that we all met there. So we met there as young professionals. So we had started our careers, and here we are now in our mid-careers. We have our children who are now friends. So for me, a network like UKAP has been important, not only on the professional side, because I know you guys do a lot of events in terms of connecting with people from the sector, but for me, the key has been building those relationships, so personal relationships that you carry for life. And I was amazed by how much representation there was in Albanian community from all the sectors that you can think of. So from my sector, from finance, from health, so all of them. So it's a great space, and I think when I talk to people from other countries, they are always amazed by how much this network has done, and it's still going and it's still supporting, especially young professionals coming in London, where is the time when you really need to have a good support group, and who else is better to support you than people who come from similar situations or background.
It's actually giving me goosebumps because I'm in the same situation right now myself, and I'm creating some very strong friendships with people that just come and attend to events, but I'm also creating a very strong bond with the other volunteers. We're now friends, we hang out around each other. And as you said, who can understand you better than people that come from the same background? So it's crazy how UKAP has been doing this for so long, and I'm so proud of the whole group, to be honest. UKAP is all about connection and support itself. What kind of mentorship or guidance made the biggest impact on your journey for yourself?
Mentorship is crucial. Sometimes we think we don't need it. Sometimes we might be afraid of it, ashamed of it, I don't know. But it's so important to have a mentor in your life. And I think an advice I would give here, to have a mentor who is few steps ahead of you. So ideally within your sector, that can guide you and can tell you, where specific resources are and specific tools that you might need, that you might look at. And it helps that these people are not only telling us, okay, this is how you succeed, these are the what you need to do to succeed. I think a good mentor tells you, that there are challenges as well. There are steps you have to take in the way that, open your eyes a little bit, that is not only like a field full of flowers, but actually help you through those challenges that you need, that you'll face through the way. But I think it's so important to hear from people that have been there before you, and to understand, what could be expected. So I think that's an ideal mentor from your sector, steps ahead of you, that looks not only at the positive but also at the challenges that might come our way.
Now that you're in a position to guide others yourself, what's one piece of advice or mindset you always try to share?
So one piece of advice I would say to, especially young people or students, is to have a goal. So that goal helps you, guide you. So it's like that Northern Star that I was mentioning before. So whatever that goal is, it might be a small goal or a big goal, but you have some kind of a vision. And to get there, I think, you need, Italians call it gavetta, so it's a process, the steps you need to take to get there. So if it's too fast, maybe it's not the best, that you arrive there so fast. Like taking steps is so important to build your vision. And actually having that vision ahead of you kind of helps you with the setbacks and the challenges, because at times there might be failures. So my advice would be like, have a dream, hold to it, break it down to steps, and don't be afraid of slow progress. So any type of progress is still good. It doesn't have to be major and getting there immediately. So I think key is to have consistency and self-belief, and also being open to learning. So every stage is important to learn. So there might be failures, but you learn from them. You just don't say, I quit. So the importance of vision is really important. And for me, that was crucial working in this sector, that I knew that, I was gonna do as much field experience. I needed the right education to get there. And even though, for example, there were nights, when I was studying in Lithuania, that it was very lonely and a very cold country, I knew that that was a step to take me then to my master's in the US, to move me to the different countries where I did work. So don't focus so much on the moment you are right now, but have that bigger vision that kind of lights you and moves you forward. So I think that's a little advice I can give here that has helped at least me in my career path.
But working across continents and institutions throughout your career, what's one key thing you've learned about how real and lasting change happens?
Well, I would say one of the biggest lessons I've learned, that actually lasting change, is collective and it's context driven. It doesn't come from maybe a single idea or one organization. It comes from building trust over time, for aligning different actors around a sharing goal, and being willing to listen as well as adapt. So it happens when basically communities are not just consulted, as I mentioned, but they are part of the conversation, part of the process, or those individuals that we're talking about. It requires strong partnerships across all actors. So, for example, in my sector is between local and national governments, is between the NGO sector, is between the donors and partners. So so they all have to be in a line. I know that is not always the case, but you try your best to have all actors committed, focus on the insights and the context that we work on. So I think that's, one of the key lessons that I learned.
And through all of this, how do you stay grounded in your Albanian identity while moving through social international spaces?
I think there's an important theory on early child development. Those first 5 years of your life are so crucial to who you are and who you're going to be, and I totally believe that. So we are born in a culture that has so many great aspects to it, from generosity, from welcoming and all of that. So I think that always stays with you. As we navigate, different countries, we might be spread across, Europe and Asia and America. I think for Albanians, it's key to, be connected with the Albanian community around you. For me, it's also visiting home quite often and visiting my family. It's listening to Albanian music at times when you are not feeling great. So an Albanian vale can always help you cheer up in those moments. And cooking Albanian food or reading, Albanian books, that all helps. So Albania is with us. Every place we enter, we bring that part of us in the spaces that we go, I think.
I couldn't agree more. UKAP Foundation sees the diaspora as a bridge, not a gap. What kinds of bridges are still needed to improve learning and support social mobility within our community, do you think?
I think there's a lot of potential in the Albanian diaspora, and I think we're just beginning to tap into it. I think the community or the Albanian diaspora is becoming very strong. We have key individuals like from Mira Murati and a lot of Albanians that are doing so well, so our community is growing. But for me, three are the key components, and I think Zoe, for some, UKAP has done, has touched on that. But the first one, the more structured mentorship, so having young Albanians, both in the UK, but they can also be in other countries, be connected to individuals in that sector, that can be life-changing. A second one, I would say, is sharing knowledge is so important. So for example, for students that come here, where are the scholarship? Where are the training opportunities? Where are the internships? So helping them to navigate, I would say the education system, but also the careers employment system as well. So many young people, I do believe also from the work I do in development, they have the talent, but they don't have the resources and tools. So for me, the second element of sharing knowledge is crucial for the Albanian diaspora. So if you know about something, share with your community. So if the platforms are there, share it in those platforms. I know you guys have a Facebook page, a LinkedIn page. It's so important to share those opportunities with each other. And finally, I think what's important is giving back. And giving back doesn't necessarily mean giving money or funding. It means giving back with your time, like you're doing today with this podcast. It's giving back with your skills. So with whatever you have, making sure that you are giving back to the community. So as I say, UKAP is doing a lot on this, but I think like if we're talking about a broader audience, these three key elements of structured mentorship, sharing knowledge, and giving back are really, really crucial.
But I want to know a bit more about yourself and what are you currently working on or excited to begin soon?
That's a great question. So there are a few things. So I'm a young mother. I mean, not that I'm young myself, but I have young kids. So they are 3 and 5, and they are.
I've seen them and they're so beautiful.
So they are at an age where they want to move a lot, go out a lot. So our lives, my husband Pasquale and I, are filled, with activities with them and for them. So I'm very excited to see, how my son goes to, first grade starting in September, and my daughter goes to reception. So I'm very excited about my family life. In terms of professional, it's a very professional life. It's a moment that I have finished, as I said, all my education, all my preparation, all my field work. So I'm more settled now in the work I do with Girl Effect. But I think within my organization, but also beyond, I'm excited about two key interventions or projects that we are working on. So the first one is on child marriage. It's an issue that has always been present. It's present not only across Africa and Asia that we've seen, but also in Europe, also within our country. So girls getting married before the age of 18, that kind of sets their future, because education stops, livelihoods stop, and it's so unfortunate that you don't see their lives coming to full potential. And for a majority of them, this is forced marriage. So together with my organization, but also other organizations with donors, we're trying to work through holistic solutions, which means that you look at ways to keep girls in school, which is to motivate parents through cash transfers. But that's not enough, right? And then you look at how you build skills or employability between, among these girls. You look at health, making sure that they have access to family planning resources, it's all of these components trying to do it holistically. And of course, you cannot do it only with girls. You have to work with religious leaders, you have to work with local governments, you have to work with national governments. So I'm very excited and that we are digging deeper with my organization in this area, which is very close to my heart, because as I mentioned, Zoe, for my story, education has been such a door opener and eye opener. So I know that will be the same for many other girls, and I know that the talent and potential that can come through education, but also vocational training and skill buildings to make sure that they fully contribute to their lives and they make decisions. And the other area that we're working on is mental health. I would say mental health is a hidden plague of our world right now, beyond the wars that we all know and we are concerned of. But mental health is present. It's not always recognized, especially among young people. So we're working on developing digital tools that can actually detect anxiety and depression at early stages, where you can intervene more and provide young people with the resources or connections they need, the health resources they need, but also working within their communities and understanding mental health that is present within young mothers or in schools. So for me, these two projects are very exciting right now, and I really want to see how they are implemented and the changes that are going to happen through those projects.
Wow, that's so inspirational. And I'm so glad we have organizations and people like you working on such important matters. What would you say to an 18-year-old dreaming of studying at places like UCL or working for the UN, but who doesn't know where to start?
Yeah, so I'll say make sure it's a passion of yours and it's something you want to do, because it's very hard to move forward if it's not your passion. And then, so that's passion and determination are essential. Then start small, I think, and start right now. You don't need to have, as I mentioned, a full plan figured out from the beginning. So use whatever opportunities you have, research opportunities, whether you do a master's or a specific program in that's quite helpful. Look for internships or summer schools or language courses, anything that builds you towards that. For me, crucial has been volunteering to get to where I am right now. It might seem like interesting, but for me that has been crucial. I started volunteering, I would say I was, as I mentioned, in villages in Albania, but then when I went to Lithuania, I volunteered in prison. So I was doing math courses to young people in prisons. I worked in orphanages, I worked in communities HIV affected. So all of those experiences helped me, build knowledge about what was missing, what was lacking, what was needed more. So that helps you then, as you design programs for specific communities, having an understanding of the context or the real needs that might be there before you jump with only theory that you might have in mind. So that would be my suggestion. I know that for this younger generation, unfortunately, internship opportunities are not as present as they used to be for my generation, but I'm hoping that, as a community, we give young people the chances to, as you finish university, have an internship, right? As I did, in my gap year in Ecuador. That was so helpful for me to then move to a professional career. I don't think we do that enough in our days, as, for my generation, that where we had those opportunities.
100%. I agree with you, and it's definitely something to take on board. Thank you so much for this chat, but I'm not going to let you go just yet. I've got a couple of quick 5-round questions where I want you to be super honest. What would be one word your friends would use to describe you? Again, you have to be honest.
I would say funny, Zoe. Maybe I didn't come through as funny because today we talked about so many important issues, but funny.
You're cooking for your corporate partners. What Albanian dish is on the table?
So, of course, Zoe, we mentioned birek, but since I'm from Tirana, it has to be a specific type of birek, so it has to be with spinach and feta, and always, having a side of our ferges, traditional ferges from Tirana. And I've seen that they enjoy, especially my husband, he's Italian, and his family. These are not corporate partners, but you test it with them, and then I've brought it to corporate partners, and I think they have enjoyed it.
What's harder to reform, a government institution or your extended family group chat?
Well, Zoe, that's a very tough question and difficult one, but I'd still say the governments. I've had so much experience, with that, and it's still so difficult. We haven't found the key to that, and unfortunately, the times we're living now, we're, with the wars that are affecting all of us, and we all want to see change. It's not happening, and it makes us so upset. So I'd say still governments are so hard.
One book every future policymaker should read.
So in my sector, development as freedom from Amartya Sen, I mentioned in the beginning, it was an eye-opener to me. Just don't think only about improved income. It has to be more than that. It has to be, you know, so many other factors that have to work in tandem. So for me, that has been a key one.
What's one thing people often get wrong about your work?
I think that they call it charity. I really don't like the term. It's so much more than that. So it's like about people, setting their goals and building with them, what's needed and providing more tools and resources to do that rather than giving a funding or that. So I think that has been something that upsets me when I hear that.
What's a dream UKAP Foundation project that you might have or think of?
I think the one that I haven't seen, but Zoe, forgive me, maybe you have that, but I think support in startups. So I think for young people that want to start up a business, maybe in the UK, so what are the steps, what are the resources that are out there? And then as a community, if we see there are great ideas, potentially people can invest in it.
Most underrated skill in policymaking.
I think it's in policy making, but also beyond it. So it's the active listening, especially to those outside power. So being really attentive and listening to what others are saying is a crucial skill to have.
If you could teleport to one Albanian city right now, where would you go?
Well, Zoe, I would go to Ali Demi Tirana. The place I grew up is very close to my heart, so it's like a staple. So that's where I want to be.
One Albanian word the world needs to learn.
Faleminderit. So thank you.
Lorna, thank you so much for everything. When someone like you walks in the room, you bring both head and heart. And as you said, politics isn't just about institutions. Thanks again for your clarity, your leadership, and for setting such a strong example for others to follow. To everyone listening, if Lorna's story inspired you, take action, join a network, ask questions, mentor someone, or simply start where you are. UKAP's Foundation's core objectives are to advance education through scholarships, learning and training events, and expanding our mentoring program. All of this to support our community and benefit social mobility. If you want to get in touch with the volunteering group at the UKAP Foundation, please visit our website or get in touch through our social media channels. We're always happy to help.